All right. Welcome back to Make Others Successful, our podcast where we share insights, stories, and strategies to help you build a better workplace. This is our last podcast of 2024. I'm Emma. I'm going to host this one, and I'm joined here with all of our partners, Matt, Mike, and Mitch today. So we're going to get an array of perspectives, which will be wonderful. Our episode overview is focused on our vision for 2025. We want to share what we've learned works well and what hasn't worked so well with clients and how that's going to inform and influence what you all will be seeing from us in 2025. So I'm going to break this up into kind of three different segments. We're going to talk about our vision. We're going to talk about sort of the how behind the why, and then also how that fits into our larger plan with all the different things that we offer through our YouTube channel and our newsletter. And all that good stuff. So just a reminder here at Bulb Digital, our mission is to make others successful. That's where our podcast name came from. So I'm hoping we'll share some about that as well. All right, so let's get started on vision for 2025. I don't know who wants to take this first one, but whoever wants to go for it can. What do we want to help organizations do in 2025?
Well, really quick, the last episode was about what if 2025 was your year to ...
Sure.
And now we're like turning it back around on us and we're like, man, we got to figure this stuff out for us. So we've been having some important meetings, figuring this stuff out. And we're near the point of we have some consensus and some direction. And so we wanted to just sit down and kind of share that. And yeah.
Cool. So let's start with the why behind the vision. Like, how did we get here and why are we focused on what we're focused on?
Yeah, who wants to talk about like there's a typical consulting path that we could take that we are choosing not to for various reasons, and why that's leading us to this different makeup that we have today.
Yeah, I think like it's hard to put in a nutshell because if we had figured it out, we'd have done it already. And we'd be there, but we're trying to get there. One of the things that we've bucked the trend, and that is we could go be the typical Microsoft consultant. Some of us have been that in a previous life. There are things we liked about it, things we didn't like about it. That's a pretty standard approach. We could pursue Microsoft partnership again,
certifications,
and do all of those things. But one of the things that we've really figured out is that there's I think with the advent of Microsoft 365 and a lot of the tools that are now intended to be used by business users, so citizen developers, people who are using Excel, let's say, to run their business, those tools are much better than they used to be, much more accessible. They're much more powerful. And so there's a whole new world of people who are looking at a landscape and they don't know what to do exactly. And that stuff really isn't necessarily covered by the typical standard IT certified, whatever consultant, or even developer type consultant. There are certifications for all of those things. But there's help that just regular people need. And we're seeing that there. And to compound all of that, we also see that typically organizations will throw stuff at those problems like training, or can we just buy another tool? Right? What licenses will solve this problem for us? And it's kind of viewed like a magic pill. And so somebody might say, well, we have Teams. So we do chats and channels and we communicate virtually and we do all of this stuff. But there's a bigger question around something like Teams, which is, are you using Teams effectively at your organization? Right? We look at something like Teams and we see the capabilities there, not only for facilitating communication collaboration, but being a living, breathing organizational knowledge base, right? It's a strategic asset if you start to look at it that way. And so we see all of those opportunities, and those things aren't covered by certifications. They're typically not going to be something that the typical consultant who comes in to help you implement Teams and secure it and set up a governance plan for it, they're not going to help you with that strategy. And so that's some of where I think we're angling, or we're seeing opportunity. And that's where the real value in some of those tools lies.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why instead of just going to networking events or things like that, we said, what if we start a YouTube channel and share with people outside of our arm's reach,
Mhm.
which leads to a different sort of makeup of people who are looking to us. It's not just business owners who we met through a networking event who knows someone who might need our help. It's everyday people trying to get help. And sometimes it turns into business owners saying, hey, we need your help. And can you come help us? We've got plenty of projects right now, but I feel like there's a big group of our audience who is just more on the consumer side, where they're just taking the information in, and the free content only gets them so far. They don't have thousands of dollars to take them really far down the path. And we're sort of leaving them hanging with nothing somewhere in the middle. And so we're trying to play around with that concept of, how do I make something really useful for those people that they don't have to spend an arm and a leg for, but something that will be an incentive to us to produce and help that kind of more broad audience. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I think what Mike was kind of getting at is a huge theme that we've seen in really all of our projects and with all of our clients. It's not just good enough to have the fancy new technology. And it's also not just good enough to have training for the fancy new technology. It's so much more than that. And to your point, Mitch, you're just getting into more of that audience of, we're not just talking to business owners about that. We're also talking to people who might just be on a team and they're trying to make better use of technology on their team. So how do we help both business owners as well as just, regular people work better with their teams?
I think it's also interesting because, like, when you think about a standard Microsoft's consulting firm or a consulting firm in general, a lot of times when they look at growth, they look at trying to go into a Fortune 500 company and get contracts with major large organizations to go transform their business. And through the way that we've approached it in the last few years, like what you were saying, Mitch, we have engaged with a whole audience that doesn't live in that realm. And we are working with large organizations. We are working with big companies, and we could choose to try to drive into that more aggressively as our sole source of growth. But I think when we looked back at this last year, when we think about what we want to do as an organization, when we're talking about who we want to help, why we want to help, and the type of engagements we want to be in, it's not always the same. And so much like what you're saying, we're looking for in this next year, when we talk about future, we're looking to try to, what can we do? What are the possibilities that we can do for this other group of people who aren't, and to be really clear, that doesn't mean that same stuff wouldn't be used for large organizations. I mean, everybody it's a people. The problem that we're trying to solve is a people problem. It's an individual thing. We talk about it as an individual skill that's seen at an organization-wide level. But it's really honing in on that end of it, because business owners at the Fortune 500 side, most of the time, aren't really looking to solve the problem that we're articulating all the time. So
let's get into some of those challenges and some of those problems that we're seeing, whether from an organizational standpoint or from anecdotal feedback from individual people that have attended our events or watched our videos. What are you guys seeing? What are some stories of people sharing their pain points and their challenges? What's our focus?
Emma, right back to you. What is the most popular video? So like at the moment on our YouTube channel?
Project management with Microsoft tools.
My goodness, that one took off. It kind of surprised us, but in a good way. It's clear people need help with project management.
Yes.
And
process management.
Yeah.
I made sure to delineate at the beginning of my project management video that sometimes you're thinking through, I need this project management software, but actually you're trying to get it to manage a process. Think something that's weekly or annually or monthly. Those actually need to be treated a little differently in the tools. And so a lot of people have asked us, on top of the project management, to also show how to manage processes.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we have a line of people out the door to figure that stuff out. And to be frank, we have some things to figure out too. There is not the one path to accomplish that in Microsoft 365, which is why it's such a point of friction. So we are sort of tasking ourselves to look at that audience and say, we need to help them. We need to fix this situation and give as much good advice and help that we can at this moment in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I look at it a lot like what we've done with the TCR and some of the workshop stuff we've done and the content that we've built around topic-based communication. We've taken that technology and converted it into something that really speaks to people, and they start to really translate the technology into how they think about things and their mindset. Project management, which is what most people like, that's the buzzword that most people use and they talk about and they think about when they talk about doing work. They think everything is a project and we're working on a project for everything. We haven't spent a lot of time turning that into the thought. Like, we have a lot of thoughts about it. People come to us all the time to do process management stuff. We do process management and project management stuff all the time. But converting that into something that is can be talked about outside of the tools, because that is the piece that we talk about that we're missing all the time, that we think is missing in the marketplace, that we seem to have a lot of feedback from our community about, is that there's plenty of videos that tell you how to use Planner, right? There's plenty of videos that tell you how to develop an app, right? But when I'm looking at this business problem, how should I think about these tools? Like, I have these tools in my tool belt. How should I use those to accomplish this task, right? And how do we make that simple, right? And not call us up and we'll tell you what to do how to do that, right? How do we translate that? And that's, I think, a lot of what we're going to be doing in this new year. In addition to further work on some of the other ones that we've already done, but specific to project management, process management, and the comment that you made about we're still figuring it out. It's not we're figuring out how to do process management. It's that we're trying to figure out how we should talk about that in the market that is meaningful and valuable to people, right?
What's going to click?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what can we take out of the experience that we have? Like, remove the context of the specific problem that we're solving, take the things out that are repetitive, and then package that up so that it could be consumed and remapped onto new problems.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little bit like the metaphor of the teach someone how to fish. I don't remember what the whole metaphor is, but I think what I'm getting at is we're trying to find that balance between how much fishing we can do for a team, a person, an organization, and how much can we get them in the mindset of learning how to do it and how to make the decisions, informed decisions on how to use the tools. There's a balance between those two, but we're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. The thought that crossed my mind recently, which is kind of related to all this, is there's so much that we've laid out on the internal communication side of like our guidebook and the course and everything. There's elements within that translates over into this other world where it's not reinventing something from scratch. It's taking all the pieces that we have and we know and putting it in a package that someone can clearly see the dots that they need to walk down in order to improve their onboarding, for example. We want to help the majority of our audience, not the minority.
Yeah.
Even though the minority shows up with a big wallet or something, that's fun, but there's a lot of people that we want to help. So that's our why, I think.
That's the why.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of already transitioning this a little bit, but I want to transition us from the why. Like, why are we doing that? I think we've answered that pretty clearly. How are we actually going to help individuals or help organizations with these different challenges? And I think we're starting to kind of get into that. So does one of you want to discuss what our specific strategies are for 2025? And it's okay if we're still working through it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's going to be content first. You're going to see content from us that kind of comes out in a more variety of topics, right? Like, we laid out, the pillars of what we think a modern workplace has. One of them is business process, like that type of thing. And so you're going to see some content differences, some change in the way we're approaching some of the content. But I think you're also going to see us move towards content that is repeatable, and it's not a engagement for a custom service for an organization, and more of a modular or content that someone can take, or a team can take, or an organization can take to help them change what their situation is related to these things. we don't know what that looks like exactly. I think we struggle a little bit because, when I say those things, you may already be thinking, oh, they're talking about doing training. And yes and no. We're not talking about training on its piece of technology. When you get done with our thing, it's not like, oh, you will know the ins and outs of a particular piece of technology. What you will know is the intent is for you to be empowered and have the tools available to you to go make a change in your business. Not so much that you know where all the buttons are and how to click them all.
Sure. Yeah. Still like on the strategy side, but showing the path to get to the outcome, less the what button to click in what order.
Not how to use the tool, how to think about the tool.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
Which that can get lost a lot because someone's like, yeah, what good does that do me? Right? Because it doesn't get them to the end. And so I think we're a little bit sensitive to that and just like staying up in these wispy clouds all the time and actually coming down to this is how this contributes to your workplace. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it would be helpful even to share amongst ourselves of where we've seen what we're talking about be really successful. If there's any examples that we can think through. I mean, I know we've gotten great feedback from those who've taken our Total Communication Reset course, really resetting your mindset when it comes to communication and tools for communication. But is there any stories that come to mind, anyone, that you feel like we've really empowered someone? What you were saying, Mike, of how to think about the tools, not just how to use the tool.
Yeah, I mean, like we've got an active, engaged customer right now that they continue to evolve in their use of these tools. And they started with, we run our business, like our actual process that pays us money, out of Excel. And we shuffle this Excel spreadsheet back and forth and mark it up and export it again and do all kinds of things with it. So we taught them how to think about other tools as a solution for that problem. And even as time goes on, there are parts of what the tool, like we've built a model-driven app for them. And there are things that it's in their nature somehow to say, well, I just want to export this to Excel so that I can then do this. And it's like, hey, let's think about these tools differently. We have Power BI, which is connected to this data directly. Can we use that tool to answer the questions that you're trying to ask? Right. And so it's a continual process of we need to think about these tools differently. Think about what you have been doing versus what you could be doing versus what the possibility. And we fully recognize that it takes effort and work to figure those things out because I know Excel, right? I can just do what I know how to do. But there's a much better way to do it. And so like with that customer, it's been a rather long process as that tool, as that new app has evolved. Is like it expands into new areas and it's like, okay, let's think about this area the right way. Mm-hmm. Just the same way we did when we started, kind of a thing. But that gets better every day. Like they're using tools that I don't think they ever would have considered using as a result of that engagement.
I can definitely see the mindset shift happening on that team, which is really exciting and encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, almost any customer that we're actively engaged with, we can see that shift and that change. Some happens more than others. Some organizations are more prepared than others. So that is the easy part, quite frankly. The hard part is it's really hard to gauge the impact we're having, like with the TCR. Like what we were just talking about in this conversation made me go, hey, Mitch, maybe we should go reach out to these TCR people that took the course, 5 months ago? Right. And say, hey, how are things going? Right. We did that throughout the course of like a month or something afterwards, but what about now? Right?
Yeah, 6 months or a year later.
Did it actually, I just got off a coaching call with my TCR students. Yeah. We had a couple of people show up. It was, everyone is a little bit different on what their role is and what the timeline of things look like. The things that I talk about in that class are not go turn this thing on tomorrow and it's good. Yeah. It requires some thinking changes and some culture changes. And so these people in particular are saying, I went through this last summer. We set it as a goal for the beginning of this year to fix our communications. So now I'm going back through it and figuring, like, lining the stuff up so that I can come to my team and we can roll it out. And then other people are like, it's great. I don't have the authority to go say everyone needs to do this way. And so it's a little bit different in that case. And so, yeah, it's
That's exciting though.
yeah, it's all good things, but I'm realizing we're talking about big changes.
Yeah.
It's not small.
Yeah. And maybe there is part of what can we give that's low hanging fruit, or what can we put people on the path with that is in their power to change,
Right.
in conjunction with some of these bigger mindset shifts that we're asking about.
Mhm.
So that's definitely something I'd want to think through as we're starting to create these
Definitely.
new initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just what makes me think about all of these tools and things that we have that are spread out around all of our content, but they're not necessarily set up in a linear fashion for someone to walk down. And so if there is, that one, the things you can do tomorrow versus the things you need to be focused on in the next few weeks versus months, like, I think it would serve us pretty well to articulate that.
Yeah, to tag some of the things that we're talking about with those timelines in mind.
Yep.
So related to what we were just talking about, there's a challenge in that mix, which is something like, the reality is the tools that we're talking about helping people with are managed at an organizational level. And when they hit that wall, barrier to where, like, oh, I actually need to get some other people on board with this, an area that we might consider focusing on is how we transition you from what you learned with us so far to getting the rest of your team on board.
Yeah.
What does that
Adoption,
look
yeah.
like? And it's beyond adoption. It's getting the ears of the right people and making the case. It's not adoption. It's, you need to make the case to the leadership that says, oh, that does sound like a way better way to do things. We're gonna transition to that. And
how can we equip people to have
people
that
in our community
conversation?
that are frustrated to no end because they know their organization won't move and won't let them use X, Y, and Z tools for a variety of reasons. Like, how do we help you overcome that? Right? That's a tall task, but that's a thing.
I struggle with that question that you're asking, Emma, about what, saying what success is, because I can oftentimes see where a customer can be if they would only do X, Y, or Z. And every customer that I've worked with on these things has seen improvement, has seen value in what we do. I struggle with, I know where they could be, right? If only they would do X, Y, or Z. One of the big customers that we work with all the time, to specifically like, hey, what's a success story? For probably 3 years now, I have been painstakingly leading by example, saying, no, we're going to do stuff in channels. No, we're going to use Planner. No, we're going to do these things, right? And slowly but surely it started to transform. And I don't know if you guys noticed it, but we have yearly, year meetings that go on for an entire year, right? So regular meetings, they're happening for an entire year. They got converted to channel meetings and I didn't even say anything, right? They're like, the person who's managing that is like, this is what I'm going to do from now on, right?
That sounds like a process management thing.
That's great.
Which is a really positive thing. Yeah. At the same time, they're a really large organization. They're nowhere near where
that's baby step one.
That's like baby step 0.5. Right?
Yeah. But we got to celebrate those baby steps for sure.
So my feedback to you is like, I struggle with that, right? With that question that you're asking is like, that is a win. I don't do a very good job of like, yes.
Yeah. It's a very amazing micro win in comparison with where you could.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah. Well, and the curse of knowledge, right?
Yes, that's super real.
Just because I know you could be doing 5 other things better, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a successful move, that it wasn't progress towards a goal, right? But when I step back out of the customer and think about it big picture, I have to put on this, what's the real, like the long-term vision for that stuff. And it can make it challenging to answer a question like what you're asking.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've talked through the why we're looking into this, what we're hearing from our audience, the how of I know that's a little bit of a gray line around how exactly we're going to do it. Feel free to add more into that later, guys.
It might be courses. It might be workshops. It might be something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I kind of wanted to get into in sort of the third part of this of, okay, so obviously we're committed to delivering value to organizations and individuals. We have kind of this ecosystem where, people can consume our content in different ways, whether that's our community, our YouTube channel. How does this new initiative, these new ideas fit into that larger space? How would you think about a new person who's just found Bulb Digital kind of interacting with us, and how would they get the best use of our help?
Yeah, I think part of that is the ecosystem that you're articulating, which is YouTube, super accessible. Anyone can go on and find us very easily. The next step is listening to this podcast, for example, saying, I don't want just that 10-minute video. I want to hear them articulate their thoughts for 30, 40 minutes, something like that. And then what lies beyond that is where that gap exists right now, which is spend $12,000 with us, or maybe we have one $100 course or something like that. And it feels empty. And so I'm hoping that it feels very natural for someone to be like listening to this podcast and say, that's awesome. They have this thing packaged up all around project management for $500, and I get all of these things in my tool belt. I want to do that thing.
I want to go and I want to learn, whether that's from a course or a workshop or whatever it is we hold.
Right. That's my hope, is that we can see ourselves there. The problem is getting there, because most of our income comes from projects right now. A little bit comes from our products. Mm-hmm. In order for that to make sense, we need to work less on projects and more on products, but we can't just do that
and
forever for free, And
I'm just sitting here, likely going to be a part of the team that creates some of this workshop or course. And, I'm already starting to think through, okay, when we sit with an organization and they pay us $15,000, we work with them for 3-6 months, whatever it is, some of our longer engagements. Well, we get a lot of time to talk with them and to interview them and understand their business. In a workshop or a course, you're lacking all of that, and
condensed.
It's much more condensed. And so there's also just a challenge ahead of us of how do we, without knowing what business or industry this person's in, still impart a lot of value, being industry agnostic as much as we can, and also condensed, because no one wants to do a course for 6 months, likely.
Yeah.
It's the difference in what in that ecosystem we're trying to build. Most consulting organizations, you really have two main areas, or ways that you can engage with somebody, 3 maybe. That is, I have this project and I have these business outcomes, and I'm going to pay you money, and it's probably going to be a lot of money, and you're going to go deliver that outcome for me, and that's the outcome, right? And then this other one, which is like, you got some smart people. I want your people. I want your person. Give me a smart person about this, and I'm going to use them how I want to use them, right?
Can I buy a bucket of hours?
Or just this person.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Like, this is an expert in this area. I want this expert for this project, right? And that's how consulting organizations, generally speaking, a lot of them make their money. And
support.
Support is the other one, or long-term recurring.
Yep.
I'm just there to help you with this thing. And for us, we're trying to add those other areas like we've been talking about, and that ecosystem, that top to bottom. And it starts with, that free content that is completely self-administered, right? Self-put together, right? You can listen to a small piece of content about this or a small piece of content about, but we're not articulating it. When people pay us to a big project, we're owning that outcome. We're delivering that on that thing. We're, as you said, getting to know them in depth so that we can make sure that they get an outcome. This stuff in the middle that we're talking about, which I think even the $100 course, it's still like very self-identified, self-proclaimed. This middle stuff, the hope is that it's like the supercharger, right? We're not going to necessarily guarantee that we're going to solve your business outcome. We're going to help your smart people that know about your business figure out how to solve your business problem, right? the right way to solve the business problem, which the outcome of that might be hiring somebody to help actually go implement it, but you hopefully will have confidence that you know what it is that you want. So if it's a business process thing, for example, maybe you now realize, hey, I have to do something. There isn't something out there that I'm just going to get it. I'm going to have to spend some money on this. Now I'm going to reframe my mind into that mode. Whereas right now I'm like, well, can't Planner do it? Can't Planner Premium do it? Can't, ClickUp do it? Can't Monday.com? Can't I just do this other thing? And now you maybe reframe it and go, well, no, I can. Or maybe, I can do that, but I need to contain it this way to do that, right? The hope is to get to a point where that's the type of outcomes that people get, is that the person who's taking or involved in the thing is now supercharged to go
make those decisions,
make that happen.
So helping you figure out how to think about the tools so that you get unstuck and find direction.
Yes, and that you can be confident. When we've talked in the past, we've had many of iterations on how we want to frame ourselves. The confidence to be able to go move forward, get you unstuck. Like you were these are all the things that we want this to do, right? When you hire us directly, we get you unstuck, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
we are not wired to say, here's this thing, good luck.
Yeah. If you have us on a project, we're going to get you somewhere.
Right.
We're going to move you somewhere. These other things, it's really all about helping you get unstuck. You have to, it's the person or the organization, but we're going to get you unstuck with what you're at right now. And
there may be a piece of we've obviously built a huge following on YouTube, and people who are searching information on YouTube are the type of people who want help to get unstuck themselves. That's our audience. And so we're trying to, like you guys are saying, of course, if you hire us, we're going to guarantee that. But we're trying to pull ourselves back of these are already motivated folks who are just trying to learn, continuously improve and then apply what they learn. And what do we have to offer them? So I feel like that's a big focus for 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I just had someone in that meeting saying, I need to be the project manager for this thing. I don't have formal training. I'm putting Emma's video is really helpful, but I'm also trying to find my way in all these Microsoft tools. Is there a cheat sheet of what tool can use what? And it kind of just was spinning a little bit. And so I'm like, I want to take that and just put a little bumpers around it so that she can just run with it. And I'm excited about that potential.
Awesome. Well, I think it makes a lot of sense of how everything's going to work together, and then how we'll hopefully help people go from those initial steps with us to a higher step where we're actually delivering all that much more value. So one thing I wanted to say is, if you're listening to this, we would love to hear your feedback on everything we're talking about. So I'm sure we'll put a link in the show notes where you can provide that. If not, just comment on the podcast. But if there's anything that we're talking about right now, it's that it's been really helpful to hear from our audience.
I'll set up bulb.digital/feedback.
That'd be great. Okay.
And send whatever thoughts you have.
Yeah. And if you're interested in this course, what the course might look like, or the workshop, or the thing that we're going to put together, we're really open to feedback as we're iterating on this. So
we desire feedback. We're hungry for it.
We would like it. Exactly. All right. So what did we really talk about? We talked about our vision for 2025, the why we arrived here. We've been on this journey for a while, the how we're going to deliver it, and then how does it all fit? Before we end, are there any other last thoughts? Kind of back to what Mitch was saying. What if 2025 was your year too? We asked kind of that of our clients and our organizations. What if 2025 was our year? How would you guys answer that?
I want to unlock whatever this product is that will help a massive amount of people.
Yes.
To me, that's however that connects to the people. I don't really care if we're selling one at a time, or if an organization comes to us and says, we need to change the way everybody does something. I'll do all of the above. And if we can deliver all of those things with this package thing that we're talking about, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Mine would be, I want to get our YouTube channel back on track. For anyone, you might have noticed it's been a little bit light lately.
We've been busy.
Yeah, we're shuffling some things around here. This is our last thing we're recording in this studio. We're
second to last. We're going to have one more right after this.
We're moving right through that wall right there. And that's exciting. So like I got to move a studio and we're trying to get back on our feet in regards to that. So hopefully you feel us produce a little bit more, see us more often, start to hear us talking about these topics, and see us start to build a wait list of people who are hungry for this change and people that we can, really, really help.
Cool. Matt, I'll let you go and then I'll share my thought.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, I think a lot of it just comes down to figuring out how to explain something to end users that inspires them and makes it it's feasible for us to continue to do that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff we've done, some of the webinars, some of the even the TCR, we love doing it. It's what we want. It's not really making us a ton of money.
No, we lost money on the guidebook, made a little bit of money on the course.
Yeah,
but it's
not changing anybody. It's not keeping anyone employed here.
Mm-hmm.
It feeds our soul a little bit.
Yeah,
it feeds our community. I would love to see that change into something that we can pour into more, because right now it's a struggle to pour into it, right? And that doesn't mean it's a struggle to do it. It's a struggle to just pour, because that's what I really want. I really want to be able to pour into that, and spend time and focus and energy on that on a regular basis. And it's a little bit of struggle now.
Yeah. I think my answer would be, because I've now been here a little over 2 years, I would wish for everyone else that doesn't work at Bulb Digital to get to feel what it feels like to work at a modern workplace, because I have worked at very non-modern workplaces before. So whatever we can do in 2025 to bring just that mindset that the three of you guys have, unlocking that for more people to bring to their workplaces would definitely be my goal. Which sounds like that's the vision.
Order,
so
Emma.
yeah. Well,
I love it though.
It's definitely, it makes your work life just and life in general so much better to have a modern workplace. So hope we can bring that to more folks. So like I said, just encourage everyone listening to give us feedback. What's the website again?
Bulb.digital/feedback.
Okay, you made it simple. Love it. And we're looking forward to 2025. I think we've got really exciting things ahead. So
definitely.
Thank you all for joining.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.